Thank you, Jonathan, Daniel, and Mia. I think we're getting ready here. So people, get ready for Mia to introduce Sava in a minute. Get your clap emoji into the chat because we want to give the warmest and most caring welcome to our first keynote at OER 20. And Mia, we're all going to mute our mics, switch off our videos, and give the stage entirely over to you. I'm going to go and press record now and then hand over to you.
Welcome, everyone. I've been waiting for this moment for a long time. We're going to conduct now our first plenary session, and we have a very special guest, someone who I think can be rightfully called a scholar, an activist, and an artist. So Sava, welcome. Let me just say a little bit about you so everyone knows about you before we get started. Sava is a postdoctoral fellow at the University of Ottawa, and she researches young people's media use. She's particularly interested in their connection or disconnection with media and technology. And previously, she's been a postdoctoral fellow at the Surveillance Studies Center, which is located at Queen's University, where she's conceptualized and co-produced Screening Surveillance, which is 3 short near-future fiction films that call attention to the potential human consequences of big data surveillance. Sava completed her PhD on academic Twitter from NYU's Educational Communication and Technology program. It's my sincere pleasure and honor to speak with Sava Saheli Singh here at our OER 20 conference, and her work, I believe, has so much to offer all of us. I think that it's especially pertinent to our global gathering these 2 days as we focus on care in open education. So I've been looking forward to this for some time, as I've mentioned. So thank you for joining us, Sava.
Hi, thanks so much for that intro, Mia. I don't know if I've ever called myself a scholar or an artist or an activist, so I will accept those labels from you, but also be careful about them because I don't know. It's like, I guess that's imposter syndrome at work there. I'm so pleased to be here and so excited to connect with so many of you today. Also, huge thank you to Marin and Martin and Jonathan and Daniel and Mia for all the organizing and all the setting up. I'm so impressed with how smoothly OER 20 has transitioned from a face-to-face conference to an online one. I am sad that I don't get to meet many of you, but I get to meet many more of you this way. So that's kind of cool. Also, maybe this makes us move closer to open. I don't know. So a little background on the project. Outside of, in addition to what Mia said about me, this screening surveillance project was conceptualized and co-produced during a postdoctoral fellowship with the Surveillance Studies Center at Queen's University, as Mia said, and I completed the project with support from a grant from the Office of the Privacy Commissioner of Canada, which is kind of cool. The center that I was working with felt that in light of recent surveillance developments, such as social media breaches, smart city ventures, and workplace and educational monitoring, we needed to pay more attention to and analyze the logics and practices that underpin, enable, and accelerate big data surveillance. As these interoperable systems map and monitor the movements and behaviors of populations, they cast long data shadows and draw inaccurate data portraits. These flaws in these systems remain points of academic discussion, but as these portraits are propelled forward in space and time, often perpetuating existing inequalities, more public input is needed on these futures and their implications for people and places. This feels especially important right now as the responses to the pandemic increasingly involve surveillance methods to track and monitor people. As I had said somewhere else, probably on Twitter, when we abstract humans into data, it takes us further away from the possibility of compassion and care. I have to say that the amount of support and trust I received from the Surveillance Studies Center really made a difference. It was a pleasant surprise in academia, and I am grateful to David Lyon and David Murakami Wood for trusting me with this project. I am also very grateful to Clark Mackey, who is out of Queen's University's Film and Media department. I'm grateful for his mentorship, because before this, I had no experience in filmmaking, and without Clark, I would not have done this project. I also want to acknowledge the incredible support that I've gotten from my current supervisor, Val Steves, and the Equality Project at the University of Ottawa for my ongoing work with this project. I'm so grateful to be given the space and time to publicize the films and present the films at events and conferences like this one, and speak to students and Skype into classrooms and do guest lectures. It's just been so heartening to share this work and have these conversations with people. Like I said, it's rare to get this kind of academic support and mentorship that I've had both at Queen's and at the University of Ottawa. So to say a little bit more about the films speculate surveillance futures and the effects of deeply embedded and connected surveillance systems on our everyday lives. We created them to be a public education resource and to spark discussion and extend understandings of surveillance, trust, and privacy in the digital age. Each film focuses on a different entry point into big data surveillance and the tensions that manifest when the human is interpreted by the machine. These stories speak to surveillance as it can manifest in an everyday setting, in which we have no choice but to be surveilled and our data used against us. And I want to stress the against us part here, because we are often sold this stuff as a way to make our lives more efficient or more safe. And more often than not, we end up at odds with that technology. So in addition to centering women of color in all of the films, I want to note that each story is about an act of resistance. Not resistance, big R resistance in the sense of pushing against the system, but resistance in the sense of trying to survive despite the pressure from the surveillance systems they find themselves having to live in. Each story is about reclaiming agency, about the protagonists trying to find space for themselves in a system that polices and limits the spaces they are allowed to be in. Each of these stories is about trying to live with surveillance while also having an actual life with varying results, most often unfortunate. These make for some grim viewing, and I'd like to be sensitive to everyone here and note that the content might be disturbing to some as it covers issues of isolation and self-harm. But they bring important issues and struggles to light and hopefully help us think about, talk about, and act on the oppressive systems that we allow into our lives. So without further ado, I think we can watch Frames, which is the film we're going to watch now. I'm going to say a little bit about it. It was filmed in Montreal. It was written by Madeline Ashby and filmed by Farhad Pakdel. And it's just, I don't want to say more because for those of you who haven't seen it, I think it'll be really interesting to get your input on it. And for those of you who've seen it, even me having been so close to it, every time I watch it, I think of something new and notice something new. So I hope you enjoy this and we can talk about it after watching it together.
So there's so much to say about your work, Sava. And I just wanted to tell everyone in the session now that the plan is to have a bit of a chat. Questions that I want to ask her to get us started. And then afterwards, there'll be a more open, interactive Q&A, and Maren will help tag some questions. So if you feel like a question is emerging, you can put it into the chat, and hopefully it will be captured by the moderators so that we can take that up after we chat for a little bit. Sava, I think your work addresses this issue of care from a really specific kind of perspective. And I'm hoping that you might speak a bit about the question of how we might care or fail to care in the age of surveillance capitalism. I know your work speaks to this problem in particular ways, so I just wanted to open up with a more general question to get you started in making those connections.
Sure, thank you. Is your video on, Mia? Because I feel like people want to see you. There you are.
I'm sorry, I forgot about the video part. I was focused on audio. But here
no, I was just like, where's Mia? So thank you. Yes, this is a good question. And I think each of the films deal with an element of care. And this might have been somewhat inadvertent in the sense that I didn't include it in the brief that I gave to writers and filmmakers. But I think care is just at the core of so many of our relationships and interactions that it is hard to avoid that. In these films, we highlight a lot about how there can be different types of care that we sometimes expect or take for granted, but that, when coupled with or controlled by surveillance capitalism, can become a source of harm, even if we don't mean it to be. So in Frames, I think the element of care is so visible, in part because it is so invisible. The protagonist doesn't seem to have any relationships of care, and the machine's attempts to model care amount to checking whether fraud has occurred, you know, when she sends money to the various people, and whether and in awarding social points in order to encourage community behavior. Weirdly enough, the protagonist herself does things that might be categorized as care, like when she loads money on the woman's card on the bus and when she leaves a larger than usual tip for the server at the cafe. But these, as we now know, are motivated by something other than community cohesion. So in a way, we're reframing what care might look like in a setting like the smart city, where so many of the decisions and calculations of human interaction are made by algorithms. Right, yeah.
I was struck by the silence of the film. There's no dialogue at all. Alan sort of threw that out in the chat, and I was nodding. Are you capturing this question around what dialogue means by making that purposeful choice? Or what did you have in mind in the design of a film that had no dialogue?
I think everyone, you know, makes and takes their own meaning from things. But for me, when I first conceptualized this film, that was part of my brief. I wanted to give the sense purely from the perspective of the machine. And Madeline Ashby, who wrote the story, took that idea and really created a powerful narrative. And I honestly have to say that a lot of this has to do with the visuals too. And Farhad Patel, who is the filmmaker, an incredible job with the film. He had a strong vision from the start and was very much part of the narrative process and ideation. So I have to give a lot of credit to him for making a film that is so quiet, but it speaks so loudly about the issues that the films bring up. And I think because we wanted to focus on that machine vision of humans, that silence makes that ending much more stark, doesn't it? It also, it's like, yeah. It also speaks to how barren this world of machine interfaces is. There is no joy, no love, no care, just the cold calculation of big data crunching. So I think it was very much a conscious decision to keep it like there's no dialogue, and we just wanted to focus on that view, like that point of view of the machine, that we're watching this unfold in front of us and what that means. And I think the coldness of it also is very much conveyed by the silence in the film.
Yeah, I mean, I really love your point about barrenness. I think that's a good word. There's nothing growing.
I mean, it helps also that these were, it helps that these were filmed in winter. And that has more to do with deadlines than choice. But Montreal in the winter is brutal. And I was part of one of the other films, the filming of, and it was very, very cold. And it was interesting because a lot of visualizations of smart cities and technology and everything show you, like, tree-lined avenues with people on bicycles, and it's all of this beautiful, sunshiny, by the water kind of, evoking like vacation time and just leisure time. And in this case, because it was filmed in the winter, it's really, and that was, like I said, inadvertent, but it's really great to be able to show that, wait a minute, whatever smart cities are exist through seasons, and this is what it can look like. So I think that added to like the starkness and bleakness of the film, just that it was filmed in the winter.
Yeah, absolutely. I have this question about the title itself, because I think frames is a really interesting concept overall. Just a few comments about that. I just was thinking that when we think of a frame, we're actually containing something in a particular way, right? You can think of a portrait as sort of being compartmentalized, but also foregrounded or featured in a particular way through the frame, right? And then when we talk about organizing our ideas, we say we're going to frame this session in a certain way, etc. So there's these uses of the term, right? But then more explicitly in your film, we see these data frames that hover over, which are obviously the trace of surveillance. And then there's a very explicit kind of categorization there. So I thought you might just speak a little bit about like what that title means to you and all the different ways that we can read that as we live in this day and age.
Here, I have to give credit to Madeline Ashby, the writer. She came up with that title, and it is such a perfect title, isn't it? Like it conveys so many different meanings of frames, not just in life, but also in the film itself. And I love this question and your interpretation of the term and the concept of framing something. I think in this case, the title speaks to being in the frame, as you noted, as well as a nod to the frame that is being used to analyze the folks that are in the frame. So that frame, in this case, is big data surveillance, and to some degree, moral conformity, right? The frame here is being controlled and created by algorithms that are infused with the biases and techno-utopian fantasies of their creators, as well as the racist, white supremacist, and capitalistic roots of this technology. And this is what's being used to make those in the frame conform to the norms set up by the system. So in frames, we've tried to show that the frame around each person is how the machine is seeing us. And that's really important to kind of uncover what that is. And that's what we've attempted to do. Like, what is the particular frame that we are being analyzed through?
Yeah, absolutely. I was also struck by the terminology in those frames, like authorized user and human object, status, paid. There was also community cohesion, which a lot of people were making acknowledgement of in the chat. And so I think that these sort of labels that are coming up are sort of pointing towards values and dispositions that are sort of brought down upon us through this system. I just wanted to know if you wanted to say a little bit about that and what you're thinking about.
The text overlays were they were quite a challenge, if I were to be honest. I worked with Farhad and Tim to come up with that and work out the details of what that would look like. I think we wanted to have enough information there that if people saw it and read it, it made sense in the context, and kind of pointed to current systems as well as potential future systems and ways in which we were being analyzed. But we also wanted that information to be harder to see. There's some instances where you don't see it on the first viewing, or if you're watching it in a particular format, you don't see like the details of it. And that's fine. That doesn't take away from the narrative. But we wanted both those things, which is kind of like how it is in reality, right? You know certain things about certain things and you can't see certain other things. So a lot of that was, like we were saying, was inspired by current systems like the credit scores in North America and other places, and social scores. I think people hold up the social score system in China a lot more than the credit score system in America, which are the same thing. You know, you're assigning points to people and their behavior. So each of the points of data, as noted, tracked, and logged by that system, further box us into a conception of not of who we are, but of who the machine thinks we are and who it wants us to be. Especially who it wants us to be, in order to better control and analyze and predict us, right? So if we don't conform to certain ways of calculation analysis, then we cannot be controlled and predicted. So I really think that's what this is, a way to mold humans into more machine readable elements in order to make the system more efficient. We've been sold a lie that efficiency is something to aspire to, and like being made into data, this obsession for efficiency is nothing more than the manifestation of an extractive capitalistic system.
I'm really haunted by the ending. I'm sure everybody else is too. I want to know, did she slip? Was that the plan from the moment she wiped her mirror to see herself in it and grapple with whatever wasn't being read by the machine? Who cared for her? I want you to talk about that.
It really is haunting, isn't it? And I've been getting snippets of comments, and I'm really appreciating them. I kind of want a whole transcript of all these comments to read later, because I want to like hear what people are saying. But in this story, she did plan to do it, and I think this is something that might have been missed as well. At the beginning of the film, she puts something on the table in her apartment that is noticed by CasaCam. Like, it identifies it on the table, and it flashes red for a second. And it flashes red because the system is unable to identify what it is, because it's a foreign object in the whole room, right? It's been looking at that room for so long, it knows everything in that room. So that thing she left on the table is an envelope, and she's left it there with a letter, maybe a key, maybe instructions. We don't know what's in the envelope, but that envelope was definitely a farewell. That was very much set up as that. So it was very like I was saying earlier, in this case, in a sense, she's reclaiming agency from the system that tracks her every move, and she wants to get out of that. I can't speak to what her mental health situation is and what her motivations are, but that's part of the process that we were imagining for her. And it's really interesting for me to hear about what people take away from this. It's a very affecting story, and of the three films, this one is always a bit of a conflict for me, because the takeaway isn't that we should somehow design systems to be better at reading us. I mean, I have friends who go through stuff, and family members, and I can't always tell, right? Until you kind of like start noticing or having a conversation or creating the space for people to talk about things that are bothering them, or how it's affecting them. So this is not that I want the system to be better at doing that. It's that we shouldn't have these systems at all. Over here, I should have written down a note to Chris Gilliard's quote when he was making a statement in front of, I forget what it was, if someone remembers, but he said that, we don't want the systems to get better. In fact, we don't want them. When that happens, that's when we should really be worried. So yeah, that's that's what we were trying to do with that.
I'm conscious of the time. It's already 11:23, so I'm just going to ask one more question, which I think is sort of an attempt in a way to connect the content and the thematic of the film to this moment in time that we're living in. I just was thinking about the fact that this pandemic has sort of upended everything, obviously. It's a time of pain and unknowns. And obviously, nothing will ever be the same after this moment in time. Things will change. And I think, when you think of the word crisis, as I said in our welcome to the conference, it's a kind of turning point moment where things could get worse, things could get better. So I want to ask you, what kinds of things, especially in regards to education and learning and the context of these systems sort of like driving the power of education forward. I mean, meaning the systems, the digital systems, the surveillance, et cetera, the learning analytics, et cetera. How can we think about openness in education and think about care. And I know these are huge questions, Sava. I'm sorry if I'm making too big of a question, but I'm hoping you might speak to what this project means to you in regards to these issues of surveillance, and then how you think it layers over on our shared enterprise of wanting to assert care within a context of open education.
That is a huge question, like you said.
Yeah, I know.
And I think the question that so many
Forgive
of us
me.
are grappling with right now, and I think, like, in a weird way, this moment has forced us into into understanding the urgency of grappling with some of this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
My partner and I have been talking about so much of this. Both of our work is very much about making visible the invisible and complex systems that control us. And what's interesting about right now is that this pandemic has laid bare all the flaws and fallacies of all the systems that we are a part of, from education to work to who gets to opt out. I mean, part of it, like part of the conversation we'll be having is like, do we have jobs now? Because it's weird that the thing that we've been trying to do in terms of revealing the inner workings of like large and complex systems is now everyone's in it. Like, we're all here, we're all seeing it. And so what do we do now that we see it? Like, it's a weird place to come, which is just like, okay, the work I've been trying to do is to get people to this place, and now we're here. Like, what happens next? And it's something that I've been trying to think through and trying to think about. And it's really hard. For example, so many of the people I know who are like disabled friends and colleagues who have been advocating for different ways of working and studying and being are now seeing all of these ways being adopted immediately, only because of the perceived inconvenience to those of us who are more able-bodied. And that's mind-boggling and frustrating, right? This is, you know, it's hugely frustrating to see this happen, and further shows that technology and these systems were never really there to help people. They were only there to help people who are profiting off that technology. So
yeah, I'm struck by that idea of convenience always being the assertion, right?
Right, yeah. And in terms of like education, it's really hard to say, because honestly, a lot of stuff about education has also been laid bare. I mean, look at us now. Like, this was going to be an in-person, face-to-face conference of a limited number of people, and all of a sudden, how many people are we? And it's just like so many more people are able to connect and access this information that we're talking to. I know that a lot of conferences put their stuff online later, and there are online elements to a lot of stuff. These elements already existed, but here's something that we're doing that's just up there, and it's just, I love seeing people's comments and being able to talk to them. This is kind of a collective. We're here together. It's kind of amazing. So it's, I don't know, like education, healthcare. I'm going to quote a tweet of mine here again, that it feels like a moment in history when we can work together to overcome this pandemic and then stride towards that Star Trek future that in which, like, we end war, we end money, we end inequality, we open borders, we all get medical care, we share everything with everyone. Like, it's possible when you think about it. I genuinely hope that this is our Bell Riots moment. And that's, sorry, for those of you who are not into Star Trek as much as some of us are, it's an episode from DS9, which is just like, if you get a chance, if nothing else, watch that episode about the Bell Riots. And it's just like, you'll be struck by how much it reflects where we are now, and where we've always been. But the cynic in me will always worry about the opposite will happen, right? That because right now, so many of the surveillance methodologies are becoming far more invasive and far more normalized under the guise of like, it's you know, right now, it's an emergency. We have to do this stuff right now. And so it's at the same time hopeful and worrisome. It depends on which day. Like the other day, I attended a wonderful Zoom session about criminalization during COVID-19 and how that's really, really dangerous and harmful, and how we need to kind of approach everybody with compassion. Like, we don't need snitch lines to say, oh, that person's walking on the street. Just like, we have to change how we approach this. And I do hope that this moment, as heartbreaking and painful as it is, gives us it is giving us an opportunity to like really look at these systems and try and affect some change, and we have to get out there and do it. Like I feel like I need to do more than I'm doing right now, and I hope that I can. So I hope we can all come together and really, all of us are activists now. It's like we all are, and we got to like step up and do that stuff.
Yes, yes. I think at this point, maybe I'll ask Marin if she has any questions that she's culled from the chat, or if anyone wants to throw something into the chat now, question-wise, or even raise a hand so they can ask that question on their own.
Thanks, Mia. We have a few people in the room and we'll give them the mic in a moment. I did pick up a question earlier from Maha. Maha commented that she would love to hear more about how social isolation and everything moving online will feed into a stronger culture of surveillance.
I mean, you just said it there, Maha, haven't you? Hi, Maha, by the way. I love you. I'm so sad I still haven't got to meet you. But like it's there in your question, isn't it? In some ways, and I think many people have written about this in various venues online, that unfortunately the choice being given to us is like privacy or like health. And that's a false dichotomy. That's not an option. Those two things should be together. And I don't know, the social isolation stuff, we have to see how it plays out, right? It's really hard right now to make any sort of comment about it. Like I know that a lot of colleagues of mine in academia and other places, it's very easy to have a take and have a thing and let's do this and let's analyze this. And it's like, wait, we're in it. Like right now, what we can do is observe, take notes, like, think about what's happening, but it's really hard to say what can happen as a result of this. I mean, the only way we can say this within speculative fiction, right? We can kind of speculate what might happen and then, see whether there are any like positive things that can come of this. Yes. Can negative things come out of this? Most certainly. And that's scary. I'm just, like I said, I'm just hoping that all of us find a way to somehow get together and be like, all right, no, like in this moment, we're doing certain things and then that's it. We're not like, we have to change how this works.
I think there's hands up, so I'm just going to be quiet.
Okay, me too. I should signal that I'm done with my answer. So that we're not like in like weird blank spots. Sorry. Is there anything?
Hi.
Medea.
Can everyone hear me?
Oh, yes, we can.
I'm one of Dr. Zamora's grad students. May I call you Sava?
Yes, please. I insist upon it.
I can call. Okay, because I want to be. I have a thing where I have to call. Like I would never call like in a million years, I couldn't dream of calling Dr. Zamora Mia. Like even if I graduate, I can never call her Mia. Like in 1,000 years from now, she will never be Mia. I think that this is so provocative and that we need to really immerse ourselves within art. And this is something that I did not conceive of. This was not a thing when I went to college at all whatsoever. And not be vulnerable here. Let's expose myself. I do anyway in class, right, Dr. Zamora? So
I've always said that vulnerability is the seeds of all learning, and you're wonderful at that.
It is. Now, I come from a background in my own mind and my own ideology of being a strong proponent of the free market economy. I always have. When I see something like this, it hits me in my stomach. Okay? It is absolutely, this is why art is pivotal. Art changes. Art has the capacity to reach in. I mean, if you are human and have that, if you are able to appreciate art. Some people are, let's not discuss politicians, etc. But some people, if you have that sensibility of being to appreciate art, this 11-minute, 11-second film is absolutely gutting, because you realize that in essence, by reducing individuals to algorithmic functions is dehumanizing. It is so dehumanizing, and she is surrounded by people, yet she is isolated. This beautiful, gorgeous woman in the scarf and you see her eyes speak from the moment you see her in the mirror, and the power of the communication in silence is absolutely so pivotal, and the use of frames is very, very provocative, because yes, we are now units. We are basically units to be processed, to be our information to be digested, and for us to be reduced to a number. And this is coming from somebody who and always has been, a very big proponent of capitalism. But I am rethinking, like, this is what you need. You have to question things. You have to question things at a deep level. And art is so amazing, because art has the capacity to just hit you in the stomach, and it makes you uncomfortable. And it's necessary to be uncomfortable in order to change. Like, this is uncomfortable. This is like I said, it's a gut punch, but you need to be uncomfortable to change. And I can't. It's amazing. Like, this is my second viewing of it, and I probably, if I see it again, I'm gonna notice more. So I just wanted to say it's absolutely fantastic.
Thank you so much. It's very heartening for me to hear everything you said, and that this piece has made you really consider and think about the things that our world around us is. And I think you're right. In this moment, some of those very deeply held beliefs that we thought that things worked in a particular way and did certain things in a particular way, and that's not the case, right? And that's really powerful and scary. So I understand. It's just like, everything you held to be true and fair is suddenly you're just like questioning it. And that's a difficult place to be in the world. And I think I appreciate that you shared that with us. Thank you so much. And I really hope that from this point, you have Mia in your life, and that's amazing. So you have someone and people and community and all of us that we can all kind of help each other through that, and help each other kind of being like, all right, this system isn't what I thought it was, and it's really harmful to a lot of people. And how do we kind of work through that and get to where we need to get?
Yeah, I know quite a few students in I'm in the box. I have the hat on. That's me. My Italia hat. I know that quite a few people were really deeply affected by it in our class, and the brevity of it. The fact is just the brevity of it is its genius. It's genius. The weather, in every detail, nothing is what is the word I'm searching for? Nothing is extraneous. There is nothing there that is not deliberate.
I think that's actually one hallmark of good art, is that there is, there's nothing superfluous in the power of storytelling, and that much comes through in your work. I think Lorna has a question, and she has a mic too. So, Lorna, you want to take it away?
Sure. Thanks, Mia, and thank you very much, Sava, for that amazing talk. And it's the second time that I've seen the film, and it's really it's quite unsettling, but very moving, and I think very necessary. And I think picking up on something that the last speaker was commenting about, I think what is at the root of this to some extent is capitalism. And it's the dehumanizing effect of that. And what the film really made me think of was something from a very Scottish tradition, which is a speech given by a famous Scottish trade unionist who became the rector of Glasgow University in 1972. And he delivered a very famous address called Alienation. And it basically picks up on all the themes in this film, way before we had any of this technology. But the root cause is the same. He talks about society's values lead to alienating people from each other and dehumanizing people and making them insensitive, ruthless in their handling of fellow human beings, self-centered and grasping. And the irony is that they're often considered normal and well-adjusted. And I think this is really what comes across so strongly for me, is that the issues that this film gets to the heart of are really not technological issues, they're societal and political issues that have been exploited by this technology. And I think that, for me, is what makes it really, really powerful. And it connects back to a very sort of, I think, sort of working class identity as well.
Very much so. And I think that's like one of the essential things, which is just like, we cannot solve social or human problems with technology. And it's super frustrating to me. I would use stronger words if I could, but but it's super frustrating to me, you know, when there's so many people in tech and tech pros who are constantly trying to push apps and technology and all of this stuff as solutions. And I've gotten into it often enough online on Twitter with people, but I try not to anymore because it just makes me angry and leaves me with nothing but rage at home. You know, I'm trying to figure out more productive ways to channel that. But yeah, absolutely. It's very much human and social, and it's us. It's not like technology cannot answer our problems.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think you're muted.
I'm so sorry. I just wanted to say quickly that I think it's so important at this moment in time, with everything we're coping with, that we really think to assert our humanness in the face of this kind of like a data society that's trying to shape us here and there. How we can do that, I'm not sure. But the thing that I took from what Medea was saying, so you know, with such passion, is just that there is a role that art plays in our society. And it makes us stop and think and, you know, take hold, apprehend the kinds of systems that, you know, structure our lives. So this is a moment of an upturn, so to speak. And what we do with it is still, you know, yet to be determined. But I'm happy we're having this moment to share that art and to think about it.
I also want to say that art and artists are very often bear the brunt of capitalist society. Like right now, art and artists are hurting so much because of this downturn, right? And I was lucky enough and privileged enough to be who I am, where I was, get a grant, be able to do this, and have the kind of community and supervisors who are like, no, we support this work. So a lot of things had to come together, including money, for this to work. And we made this on a tight budget. It was a very tight budget, and we managed to do that. But again, that had a lot to do with who I was and where I was, and that I had access to institutional funds and institutional things, you know. So art is very, very affecting rather, but it's also the thing that's kind of squashed the most in capitalism. And I worry about that. Like when we see things like that come to the surface, a lot of things have to come together for that to happen. And there are ways like social media and stuff where we can kind of surface some of this some more. But ultimately, all of this stuff does tend to kind of fall by the wayside when other stuff is given more attention, like tech and apps and whatever. I don't know. It's just like, I want art to be supported regardless, and it doesn't get that kind of support. And to all my artist friends out there who are currently struggling, who've lost a lot of jobs, and you know, it's hard, and I feel for them. And this is why I don't consider myself an artist, because I think I'm far more privileged right now. I still have a job, I still have an income, not for very long, but I still have that. Thank you, Lorna. And I think someone posted a link to that speech, because I would love to read it, the text of that speech. But I think I'll bug you on Twitter or somewhere to find it again. Mia, you're muted again.
Sorry, we're a little bit, I do that in class all the time now, class being this screen. Everybody's always like, Anyway, I think we're a little bit behind on time now, but I also am aware that there isn't something to run to. So perhaps there might be one more question out there that someone's like to share or ask.
Doesn't seem to be.
Sava, perhaps I might jump in then. I think picking up on, I may be beating Daniel to the post. I think I was just going to refer to the thing that he put in, but perhaps Daniel, you go for it. I think I was about to say what you prompted.
No, go ahead, please, because I think that my questions is just tangent. So
I guess this morning in the opening, to reflect somewhat on the things that are happening right now, and from Latour's sort of questions, we sort of Daniel just sort of prompted everybody here to sort of think about what are the activities that are suspended now that we perhaps shouldn't resume, and equally, what about the suspended activities that we should develop or resume or even create from scratch again? I just wondered what that might look like or talk to for yourself.
Wait, can you repeat that? Sorry, I got distracted by a chat message. I was very bad at it. Sorry.
It is. I keep losing sight of you as it keeps popping up with messages galore. But yeah, so at the beginning of this morning, we sort of during the introduction, we're asking people to really think about this moment in time, and rather than just sort of saying let's wait until we get back to where we were previously, of really I think talking to where you were sort of saying about that we need to observe, we need to take notes. I suppose, is there a sense for you what that might look like as to those changes, the things that perhaps should be suspended and not resumed, or those that perhaps we should seek to continue in some form or other? You know, this for us is a huge reflection. You know, this has enabled so many more people to be able to get together. So we're, you have such mixed emotions.
Yeah, this is a really hard question to answer. And I think Mia touched upon it earlier. And honestly, there are things that so many of us have been pointing to for a while, and those things have become urgent and more obvious and more visible. And I think that's, now that more people are taking notice, I think we are able to kind of maybe based on stuff that, because research and things that have been talking about surveillance systems and technology and care and all of this stuff all exist. There's wonderful writing. There's lots of great stuff to read and write and look at. And that will help us kind of navigate where we are now. And so right now it might be a time to kind of be like, all right, what were all these people saying all this time, including, like Lorna pointed out, a speech from back in the day. It's not that we haven't been aware of these things going on. It's just that it's become really concentrated now and more people are aware of it. And I think taking this moment to be like, all right, we've got everyone's attention. Here's how those systems work and how they've broken down. Here's potential different ways in which we can come out of this and either resume things in a different way. I'm going to say what Maha hates when I say this, but I say things like burn it all down. And what I mean by that is not this. I don't want a pandemic to come and like disrupt everything. That's awful. No one should wish that. I really don't want that. This is a really, really heartbreaking time. But having said that, this time, we can see what's happening and we can see what we need and what's missing and what's broken in all of these systems. And here's an opportunity for us to be like, all right, how do we gather together, make these things work? How do we kind of also, we have to point out that there's certain governments that are not doing enough. So what does that mean for communities on the ground, that we suddenly find ourselves saying, oh no, we have to look out for ourselves, for each other. What does that look like? What can we do? So in a weird way right now, it's urgent in a different way. It's not a time that, I think everybody has different roles we can play. There are those people on the ground and in community organizing that can do things for their community. And then in a larger sense, there are people who are at policy level or other levels that are just like, all right, how do we make universal healthcare a thing? Let's make it a thing. How do we make housing a thing? How do we make, all of these things, suddenly you can see that they're possible and necessary. Then why aren't we doing it? All of a sudden, there's well, let's do rent freezes. we could freeze rents always forever. Do you know what I mean? Like there's certain things that are being put in place now, which is like, why aren't we doing this before? Like work from home. Oh, that's a thing that can happen. Like you can go in, but you can also work from home. Why? Like these are all these things that are coming up now, which is like we could always do. So we need to really look at that and see how it applies, and also move away from all of those oppressive surveillance things. Like, you know, a lot of people are using Zoom. A lot of edtech people are just like, I don't even want to talk about some of that stuff. But it's a time where we're like, wait a minute, we need to use the stuff, we're using it. How can we make this not harm us? And we cannot accept people saying you either get privacy or health. No, I want both. We have to be very firm on saying this is not a fair choice, that you come back to me with an answer that has all of those things taken care of. I don't know if that answered your question or not, and I went on a bit of a rant, I apologize, but that's kind of where I've been trying to think, like, and it's still new, like all of us are still trying to process what's happening, not just in a global sense, but for ourselves at home. You know, what is it that I haven't been outside of my house for like over 2 weeks? Like, what is, you know, how does that feel? I haven't talked to any of my neighbors in my building. Should I be doing that? Like, I don't know. Like, it's, you know, in theory, I've had all the answers. And now when it comes to acting, I'm like, okay, what do I do? So I think there are people who know what to do, and we can turn to them and we can be like, how do I help? How do I participate in this? Go to your, you know, local organizations, even if it's city level or neighborhood level, and, you know, or donate. Like I'm going to donate to the Ottawa Food Bank here, who've been having a lot of trouble kind of getting their shelves stocked and everything, since they can't do their usual fundraising activities. So stuff like that, I think we need to like do both things, which is like deal with things on the ground and help each other out, while also thinking about how we can change this and make these things like more equitable and more helpful.
Lovely, thank you, Daniel.
Yes, no, my question is quite different, and it's more well, it's not technical really. It's not meaning to put you in the spot, but it's just that frames and all the other one in particular we have been using with our students. They are great educational resources. And I realized that they are released under copyright. So I just wanted to ask whether that was part of some sort of conversation in terms of applying an open license, whether this was a kind of a decision imposed by the founders, or whether there was some sort of dialogue about the possibility of releasing them as openly licensed.
They are Creative Commons open license.
Are they? Okay.
Yeah, they are. And they're on the website for everyone to watch and see and take. I think the license that we've put in there is, no, I can't remember all the licenses, but the ones where you can't make money off of it, or you can't change it too much. Like, so it is a Creative Commons license that allows anybody to use it as they want, as long as they're not making money off of it or changing, you know, those things. So very much, and we wanted it as an open educational resource. So OER. So it very much is that. I'm sorry.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. Yeah, I got it right from some credits, but yes, that's great to know.
I mean, like, I think there's a different conversation to be had about like copyright in terms of who wrote it and who, you know, who's credited with the creation of this stuff versus who can use it. So I think that's a different thing, but it's very much an open resource for anyone to use.
Well, we're well over, so I think that I have to admit it.
Also, I just want to say, yeah, I want to say to anyone who's left in the chat, if you like, please feel free to reach out to me. I am at sava on Twitter. I'm very happy to talk to anybody about these, to like talk to your classroom if you have, to your group of people, anything. Like, if you are screening this and you want me to come and talk to anybody, I'm happy to do that. I'm even happy to kind of reach out to the writers and the filmmakers if they'd be interested. So please do not hesitate to talk to me online. I am very accessible online.
We're so grateful for your generosity. Absolutely, in my class, you can see the transformation that takes hold when we share and talk about this work, with Medea's comments earlier. So anyway, a big round of applause to Sava for
Thank you, you guys.
sharing
Thank you
her
so much.
work.
Thank you for having me.
It's been a great pleasure, and I think you've spurned quite a bit of thought as we move to the next part of the conference.
Which is the karaoke, apparently, but yeah.
Karaoke time next. Maren, do you want to sort of, or Martin?
I think we've stopped recording, right?
I think, I'm not
yes,
sure.
I just pressed the button as the applause came on. And from everyone here at OER, Sava, Mia, what a wonderful plenary. What an amazing way to end a first, a day like we've never had before at OER.
Thank you so much. This was really great. I'm so glad that it worked out in the end. And I promise that tomorrow I'm going to be tuned in tomorrow. Today I was just like nerves before this started. So yeah.
So
it's just been wonderful.
Who are ready to get your dancing shoes on and your mics out. There's a special treat from everyone at Reclaim Hosting on ds106.tv. And there's also a link there to join in and grab the mic as we have OER 20 karaoke happening. And Martin, did you want to say anything more to that? I know you are going to be having the mic, so something to look forward to. Nope. I think I've scared Martin away now. But for everyone,
Martin's gonna sing, then I'll have to come. I have to hide away from my husband though, because he hates karaoke. But
well, I'm looking forward to tonight, and I'm looking forward to seeing you all online again tomorrow. Program resumes in the morning, but for now, to everyone, thank you for making this happen today for all of us.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone. Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Take care.
Bye, Mia. Bye, Jonathan. Bye, Daniel. Bye, Sava.
Bye. Thank you so much.
See you all in the morning.
Bye.
Goodbye,
Bye.
everyone.
Bye.
See you later at karaoke.